Welcome to the Flying Octopus Podcast, offering a new perspective on Red Wings hockey, as well as all the important news from around the NHL. And now, here are your hosts, Tony Wolak, Devin Little, and Evan Sabrin.
Hey, it's Carter Bear, and you're listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast.
All right, guys. I went and saw the new Naked Gun movie on Monday, and oh my God, I gotta say, might be the funniest movie I've seen in the last 10 years. It was that good. You know, you go into these sequels nowadays and you're not really expecting much because so many of these sequels have bombed in all these latest movies, but this one's good. This one's really good. And I know Tony was texting me during the movie, like trying to figure out what day we were going to go this week and whatnot. And I was in the theater writing back to you guys. I was dying laughing. It was hilarious. Hilarious. So you guys haven't seen it yet, but you're going to go see it, right?
I got to get out, man. And then I think right now Fantastic Four is higher on the priority list. But if it's that good, then I might need to do a double feature here.
I also took, Devin, your advice and went and saw Superman. And I wasn't going to go see it because like the last couple have been like so bad. And then I value your opinion, my friend. And so after you wrote that rave review, I went and saw it and I really enjoyed that one. I think you knew I'd like it, though, because of all the dog in it. Like the dog was great.
I know you well, my friend.
Yeah, that was great stuff, man. So maybe we can do like movie reviews during the summer now when we have like no content to talk about. Maybe that's what we can just turn this into. So with that, welcome to episode 47 of the Flying Octopus Podcast. I am your host, Evan Sabrin, joined by my colleagues, Tony Wolak and Devin Little. On today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive into Detroit's contention window and try to analyze just how far off this team is from becoming a serious threat in the playoffs once again. The postseason drought in Detroit is now up to 9 years, the longest in franchise history, which is also tied for fourth longest in NHL history. This coming from an organization that made the Stanley Cup playoffs every year from 1991 to 2016. We used to have it pretty good, and I don't think we ever realized at the time how good we actually had it. Tony's article for the Hockey Writers came out this week, and he's going to break down, in his opinion, when fans can expect to see the Red Wings return to glory and be a serious Cup contender. Also on today's show, the Red Wings offseason was considered by many in media circles as underwhelming when it came to free agency and the trade market. Devin is going to look at some possible trade targets in this episode that will fit the aforementioned contention window, including one rumor that has been making the rounds involving a young skilled center out on the West Coast. We also have an update on training camp and where it will take place this fall. And the new EA cover came out this week for NHL 26. Not sure Red Wings fans will like it, and I was not a huge fan. A couple other news and notes from around the NHL, but before we get into all of that, I'd like to remind you where you can find us. Check us out on our YouTube channel at The Flying Octopod. Drop us a like or comment and let us know if there's anything you'd like to address on future episodes. Follow our Twitter page at Flying Octopod, where you can get all the highlighted clips from this podcast, as well as the latest news and notes from around the NHL. You can also listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And again, don't be shy. We appreciate any and all feedback. We prefer the positive kind, but we'll take what we can get these days. With that said, let's get started. Contention windows are a fickle subject, and even more so for Detroit fans who've watched this team miss out in the playoffs now for 9 years. Tony, talk to us about your thoughts on when the next window will begin for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, so I wanted to conduct an exercise about like Detroit's next contention window when we might expect them to be not only just a playoff team, but capable of taking a serious run. I wanted to do this because seemingly every offseason, every trade deadline, every NHL milestone, there's at least one national writer who doesn't know the Red Wings intimately, like we do, and the people who cover the team day to day, that puts out an article that's along the lines of, what are the Red Wings even doing with this free build? I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And honestly, that it just frustrates the hell out of me because there is like a science to this. There's a strategy that's been in place. We're seeing the fruits of its labor too. I don't know how you don't know at this point, but I wanted to see like, all right, so this team's been building for a while. When can we expect them to turn the corner and, be in that top 10 of the league, top 12 of the league? And so what I did was I used NHL aging curves. There's been several studies done on this feel free to Google it. Feel free to pick and choose which ones that you want to follow. Generally speaking, though, they all kind of agree upon a player's prime kind of anchoring around 26, 27 at the peak, maybe 25, but then still being quality players between age 23 and 29 on the ends. And like a 22-year-old and a 30-year-old just outside that, it's not like they fell off the face of the earth. It's like they're still quality players, but not in their peak for the roles that they're expected to fill out. So I took Detroit's core players that you would build around and are expected to be with the organization for a while. So all their prospects, plus Dylan Larkin, Mort Seider, Lucas Raymond, players that are part of the Red Wings organization for the long term. Players like Patrick Kane or Andrew Kopp, those types of players, they won't be here forever. And so, I took that. I mapped out their primes according to their age and what season that'll fall under, and look for when you see the most key players in their primes. Also, for each player, just put what is their expected role. And this can change, of course. In the interim, you have, Larkin as a top line forward. You have Lucas Raymond as a top line forward. You have Moritz Seider and Simon Edvinsson as first pair defensemen. Marco Kasper as a top six forward. Things like that, where you can kind of project players in roles. And then, if they exceed it, great. They fall short, not great. But at least you have a ballpark for what they're expected to be. And so, going down the list of all these players and then figuring out when most are in their prime, it looks like around the 2027, 28 season, I know it's a few years off, that's when I expect the team to be pushing for Stanley Cup berth. Now, there's 2 seasons between now and then. Obviously, a lot can happen in that time. They can sign players, they can trade players, can acquire players. There's a lot that can happen. So this is just a snapshot right now what the organization looks like and projecting out into the future. And if you're looking at 2027, 28, Larkin is 30, 31 there, so kind of falling out of prime, but still a quality player. Same with Alex DeBrincat, he's about 30 there. Lucas Raymond is squarely in his prime. And then you're looking at players like Michael Braun-Segnigaard joining the team and being on the cusp. Marco Kasper fully in his prime, Nate Danielson, Dmitry Buchelnikov, those players being in their prime years, again, 23 to 29. Seider, Edvinsson, Sandy Pellikka, and then several depth players at forward and defense in their primes starting at that point. I know that's 2 years off, but that's how I think the organization should be framing any move at this point. Now we'll get into several potential, trade chips and players who have been rumored to be the Red Wings have been interested in. But when you look at, for example, someone like Erik Karlsson, who the Red Wings have been linked to, they would be acquiring him for right now and not down the road. So if you're acquiring him from right now and not in those peak years later on, you should spend accordingly. Now, if you're acquiring someone for those peak years, then 100% that should open up the war chest of potential assets to make sure you're filling out your roster accordingly. But I get it. I know Red Wings fans are tired of being patient, but this is just how rebuilds go, unfortunately. I think it was Ken Holland who said that these things take 10 years, and it's going to be just about that by the time the Red Wings are squarely in the mix of things. But this upcoming season and next season, that's the opportunity for the organization to play those meaningful games in the playoffs, not just down the stretch, but in the playoffs, and get valuable experience for when they are actually there, competing and having a chance to, get into the Final Four or even more than that. So I don't know. Is that too pessimistic for you guys, having to wait 2 more years?
It's certainly not for me. And I mean, I kind of want to reiterate what you're saying here. You're saying 2 years away from them being a legitimate cup contender, not just a consistent playoff team. If they're 2 years away from us, talking about championship aspirations, sign me up. People, everyone's upset because they haven't reached the playoffs in a long time, and deservedly so. But if you're 2 years away from talking about the Stanley Cup, as a possibility, then that tells you right there that like they're heading in the right direction. And let's be honest, I don't think anyone in their right mind thinks that they're a Stanley Cup contender this season. We hope that like you just said, Tony, we hope that they're a playoff team and they're able to play meaningful games deep into April, not just the first week or two. And maybe even win a playoff series. Hey, why not, right? But yeah, no, 2 years to be a contender, that seems perfectly reasonable to me.
And one thing I do want to clarify with that is obviously they are not in the same realm as like Edmonton with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl now, or Florida with just the sheer depth of outstanding players. But they are at a point, at least in my opinion, when this window opens, where like this is the best it's going to get, and they need to put push all their chips in because that's just how they're built. Obviously, they haven't been lucky enough to draft first overall and get like generational talent players, but looking at their core, I mean, I saw something on Twitter not too long ago about like who are the top 30 players going to be in 2030, and Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider are both in the top 20. So like it's not a Connor McDavid, but like that's as good as it's going to get. And so you really need to go for it at that point. So like, yes, they are not going to be like a superstar driven team, but they're going to be a deep enough team where they can really make it like a solid run in the playoffs. And so they should build their team accordingly until then and after then.
And I would even argue too, just to add on to your point here, that obviously we've seen Edmonton and Florida play in the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row now. And while Edmonton's the team that has the McDavid and the Draisaitl's, they are superstar driven. It's the team with fully balanced roster depth up and down their lineup that has won the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row. And that's more what the Red Wings are building towards being, a fully deep team, rather than, hey, they have a top three, they have 2 top 5 players in the world and everyone else is just kind of okay. No, they're building more to be like the Panthers and the Oilers. And if you're building to be the team that has won the last 2 finals, I'd say that's good with me. I'd rather be building towards that team than the team that lost the last 2 finals.
And one thing I want to add on to that is I know there seems to be this school of thought where you need either a first or second overall pick to win the cup, just because you've seen that in recent years with like Crosby, Ovechkin, and like Connor McDavid didn't win, but he was in the finals the last couple of years.
Ekblad, Barkov.
Yeah, exactly. Aaron Ekblad, former number 1 overall pick. Would you rather have him right now or this past season or Moritz Seider? I'd rather have Seider, personally.
This is where I disagree with you, man, because to me, and come at me, I don't care, Seider's generational. I think he is.
You're going to go a completely different way with that, but
me too. There's not, you can ask all the GMs in the league, they would kill for a player of Seider who can put up that kind of defensive minutes every night. And I think he's a stud, and he's still a young kid, man. You guys know my love for Seider. I'm wearing a Seider shirt right here, for Christ's sake. No, I definitely see your 2-year window. That makes the most sense to me right now. And you guys know, and I've said it before here, I'm not optimistic about this team this year. I just don't see where they improve the 5v5 scoring. So 2 years looks about right. And let's not forget, man, next year's free agent crop, there's some big names. And if the Red Wings position themselves right and can land one of those big names, I'm looking at you, Kyle Connor. That would be great for this organization.
And for what it's worth, too, I would kind of bring up the point that's been said by many at this point. Just because you are drafted first or second overall does not mean that you play that way. And just because you're not drafted first and second overall doesn't mean you can't be that caliber of player. I think Lucas Raymond goes second overall in the 2020 draft if we do it over. That means the Red Wings got one of those second overall picks, right? Where does Moritz Seider go in the 2019 draft? I still think Jack Hughes probably goes first overall.
Yeah.
But Seider's immediately a consideration at second overall. So,
Preach,
yeah,
brother.
the Red Wings haven't gotten those picks. They haven't been lucky enough to draft in the top top 2 or 3, but they still landed top 2 or 3 talent, and that's what matters.
Part of this whole exercise is seeing players now projecting what they're going to be based on their traits and their development path so far, and assuming that they're going to keep going and like reach that. Things may change for better or for worse. I just want to make sure that's out there, because like, and I think I said this last week, Dylan Larkin was supposed to be a 2C when he was drafted, like a defensively inclined 2C. He can put up probably 60 points. He's a 1C, like full stop, because he developed into a player beyond those projections. Like, again, this is looking at this is a snapshot of right now, looking into the future, and just a lot can change. Like Edvinson, Sider, solidly first pair, not worried about that. Sandy and Pelika, more than likely a solid second pair defenseman, if not more, but good second pair. And then, you know, who knows what will happen beyond that with the rest of Detroit's decor. Can one of like William Wallinder, Shabuyam, Anton Johansson, Albert Johansson step up to be a consistently like good top 4 defenseman? Probably not. That's why I kind of list those players as depth defensemen, like more of a third pair or 7th defenseman, like safely. But it's possible. It's possible they can turn into one of those players. But in the meantime, just play it conservatively. And if they turn into one, great. Otherwise, look to fill that last top 4 slot a little accordingly. Again, lots of time for trades, lots of time for free agency. And yeah, you don't have to build the team fully through the draft. I think the Florida Panthers are a prime example of that. You can make some big swings via trade and make some big swings in free agency as well.
Let's shift gears here now, guys. And according to a newly released report from RG.org, an anonymous NHL source has named the Red Wings as a potential landing spot for Mason McTavish if the Ducks can't sign him to a new deal. McTavish is a 22-year-old, 6'1", 218-pound, highly regarded center for Anaheim. He was the number 3 overall pick in the 2021 draft. In 229 NHL games, he's put up 60 goals and 80 assists and is known for his real dynamic play. Career high 22 goals last season, but most importantly, he would fill one of the biggest positions of need for Detroit, and at 22 has already got 3 seasons in the NHL under his belt. He is ready to go. What do you make of this rumor, Devin?
Well, it's certainly attention grabbing. I mean, like you mentioned, this is a guy who went 3rd overall in the same draft that the Red Wings got Simon Edvinsson in. So there's obviously some talent there, and his points per game through 3 seasons in the NHL is definitely noteworthy for a young player as well. And I think the biggest thing here is just kind of how McTavish plays. He's Carter Bear-esque in terms of how he plays. He definitely is a full effort guy, 2-way centerman. Lord knows the Red Wings love those types of guys, but also is versatile enough to play different roles depending on where he is in the lineup. He's not necessarily a guy that has to be, a second line center or has to be a first line. Like I kind of like Marco Kasper in the sense that I think you can move him all over the place and he'll have success. Ultimately, what he does is he also would kind of help push them towards that identity that they're striving for of being difficult to play against. McTavish is he's honestly already becoming kind of a savvy face-off guy. One of the things that kind of stood out to me when I was looking into his statistics and whatnot, out of his 3 seasons, he has 2 seasons above 50%. So there's some reliability there in terms of him being a centerman, and he's still growing. He's topped out at 52 points this past season. I don't think it's unheard of to suggest that he could push for 70, if not this season, then very, very soon. Up and coming player that I think would we've talked about it a few times in the show already. The Red Wings have a need in their top 6 to kind of round out things, whether it's a top line winger to play with Larkin and Raymond on the top, play with Larkin and Raymond on the top line, or to play on the second line down the middle between Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane. So then Kasper would move up to the top line. I think McTavish would allow them to do that. Do all the things I mentioned before about making them a tougher team to play against, and probably play a role in both special team units. The biggest thing, though, of course, is that with a player this promising and already has this kind of resume to his credit. You don't get those players cheap, do you? That same report does mention, literally name drop Axel Sandin Pellikka as as kind of the presumed price here. And I mean, if I'm Pat Verbeek over at Anaheim, that's who I'm going to ask for sure. Top six centers are hot commodities around the league, and they don't grow on trees exactly. So why wouldn't you ask for not just the Red Wings' top prospect, but one of the best prospects in the game right now? Kind of comes down to how you feel about that, I guess, because I've talked plenty about how I'm a big believer in sending Pellikka. I think he could really transform the Red Wings blue line and kind of help them fill out their top four group of the future. But it's worth considering. At least McTavish kind of checks a lot of boxes, like you mentioned, Evan. And the unfortunate truth of really any sort of trade in any sport is that you have to give to get. And if you want something, if you want a really nice piece, you're going to have to give something really nice back. For my money, I'm not moving Sandin Pellikka. So I guess I'm not trading for McTavish if that's what it comes to. But I'm also not entirely convinced that it's ASP or bust for Anaheim.
Yes, 100% Mason McTavish is a fit for the Red Wings for everything Devin just said. And, going back to our conversation earlier about their contention window, he is squarely in his prime throughout. So, yeah, 100% he would be a fit on the Red Wings. He would fill a top six role now down the road and help them, become an even better team. And not only can he score, but he can help. And from a physicality standpoint, the Red Wings do have quite a bit of smaller forwards. But bringing him in, having, Michael Bronzek-Nygaard come in eventually, Carter Bear, that's starting to be a team that is a lot to handle. But like you said, Devin, there is obviously that cost component as well. I do think that there is a possibility that he is dealt. I know some people are like, why would you trade him? Well, I mean, Pat Verbeek does have a history of trading players that were first-round picks from the team that he didn't draft. He traded Jamie Drysdale. He traded Trevor Zegras. Obviously, there's probably a reason for Zegras, but Drysdale, he certainly could have held on to him. Clearly, they have a hole on the right side of their defense. And it's this prolonged contract negotiation, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it's a stalemate or just a lot of back and forth. It's not done, which means that probably rubs him the wrong way, Pat Verbeek. And if he's anything like Steve Yzerman, he's probably getting a little frustrated that this player hasn't signed yet. And, that said, I'm kind of going back and forth here with all the different angles. If Pat Verbeek is looking to trade a player, would Steve Yzerman want that player? John Gibson's a different story, right? That's just finding a new home for him because they had Lucas Dostal waiting. Red Wings needed a goalie. And these two have traded quite a bit. They know each other very well, obviously. So if Pat Verbeek doesn't want Mason McTavish, then Steve Yzerman probably won't be offering a lot for him. The same reason why Yzerman didn't trade for Jamie Drysdale, the same reason why he didn't trade for Trevor Zegras. Obviously the connection was there, so you can assume that there's some conversation. But if Verbeek doesn't like the player, doesn't want the player anymore, then it does make me question if Yzerman will be wanting to take on that player like McTavish. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him, an attitude problem. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying, just kind of looking at it realistically for as much as I can. But again, we're in this hypothetical world here talking about a trade rumor, which it's silly season. It's off season. It's August. There's not a lot going on. Detroit may very well have had a conversation about Mason McTavish at some point. How deep it went, I don't know. But they, obviously could have had a conversation, and Yzerman is probably going to have a very conservative stance on what he's willing to trade to get a player like McTavish, because he's been building this team for a long time according to a certain principle. And if you're going to be, overspending to get a player like this, I don't know if he's going to pull a trigger on that. The last time Detroit made a huge acquisition, it was for Alex DeBrincat, and it's because he kind of I didn't force his way onto the Red Wings, but he kind of did at the same time. So Detroit didn't have to give up too much for that. They already had an extra first round pick, so you might as well deal that. Like Devin said, it all comes down to cost. Like he's a fit, but the reality of the situation certainly complicates things.
Now, in my best Randy Jackson voice, if the cost is ASP, that's a no for me, dog. I think any other prospect could be on the board in a trade for Mason McTavish. You don't get young players of McTavish's caliber available very often like this. And at 22 years old, I think he could be a great fit for here, is just for the reasons Devin said. And Tony, you brought up a good point there too about if Pat Verbeek doesn't want him, why would Steve Eisman want him? It kind of took me back to the NHL draft when we were wondering why he didn't take Victor Eklund, and we're wondering, well, if Hakan Anderson wasn't a fan, well, then maybe we're not a fan. So the Red Wings are a tight-knit organization and do know each other very well, especially with their scouting department overseas. So, yeah, I'd be really interested in Mason McTavish, but not at the ASP price.
I'm curious, just to pick your brain here real quick. I don't know why this would even make sense for the Ducks, but I'm just kind of curious to see where you guys are at with this. What if it's Nate Danielson? What if it's a Nate Danielson 1-for-1 type of deal? Would you do that?
I think it's Nate Danielson and more. I think it might be Nate Danielson, a pick, and maybe a second round prospect or second tier prospect. Sorry, Tony, what do you got?
I guess there's a couple ways to look at this. Like if it's Nate Danielson plus for McTavish, then it's kind of net neutral from one perspective. But then like the other perspective is McTavish is sort of like a known quantity. And Danielson, while you can project what he's going to be in the future, may end up being more of a 3C guy, which McTavish has greater value than that. So, but also you could develop into someone, much better than that. Like from watching him play, like clearly he has very strong hockey IQ that'll show through when he's playing with more talented players. Like just because his WHL stats and AHL stats weren't, they weren't anything crazy. They weren't video game stats. Doesn't mean that once he gets to the NHL, he won't be an effective player in his own right. So I don't know. I can see a world where that works out, like Danielson and Anton Johansson for McTavish or something along those lines. That at least on Anaheim side would move McTavish out of that 2C, 3C role that he's in now, put him in more appropriate spot in Detroit. Danielson has a role to fill in Anaheim that fits him, and then they get a right side D prospect who frankly looks like he's going to be an NHL player at some point. So I can see that working out, but also I think that if the Red Wings are going to be making trades, they got to look for where they can get surplus value somehow.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget, McTavish is also coming off his ELC, so he will be required to sign for bigger money while Nate Danielson hasn't started his. So just a quick thought to remember. All right, guys, heading to news and notes. The Detroit Red Wings announced today they're heading north for training camp, returning to Center Ice Arena in Traverse City from September 18th to the 20th. Team will practice and scrimmage on those dates. After the camp concludes, the Red Wings will travel to Grand Rapids for the annual Red and White game on Saturday, September 21st at Van Andel Arena, home of the Griffins, as I said. Devin, what can we expect from you content-wise from there?
Well, you'll have to do a meet and greet for sure, Devin. At the Red and White game in Grand Rapids. Sign some autographs, sign some printed out articles of yours.
Guess it's a good thing that I secured my seats this morning, right?
Did you?
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah. I'm excited. Yeah, we'll have to set something up because that's a good idea, boys.
Get him a booth like he's at a conference or something just to sign autographs. Get a big cardboard cutout behind him.
Yeah, maybe do a live podcast with Hockeytown West guys there. That'd be fun. I bet you those guys will get after it. I bet you they're a fun time, and they love the Griffins, man. I'm sure they'll be there.
Absolutely.
And this Wednesday, NHL 26 EA Sports announced their cover boys. Guys, did you see who it was?
Yes, I did. We got Matthew Tkachuk, and then on the deluxe edition, you got him and his brother and his father.
I actually thought that was a joke when I saw it. I thought it was someone just got creative with in design and was like, yeah, let's throw all the Kachucks on there. It's real. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm not a Brady Kachuk fan. I mean, who is in Detroit? And I thought it was kind of weird because last year they had the three Hughes brothers on there, so they're doing it again. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter. Everyone does a mock-up of NHL 26, the cover they want to see. And I would have loved to see the Gaudreau brothers, but again, I can understand like that might be hard for the family. But I know a lot of people was lobbying for that, so. I wasn't a huge fan of the Kachuk decision, just for all sorts of different reasons. I think there's more dynamic players, but he is the two-time Cup winner.
I appreciate the Gaudreau idea too. I also agree it might be just a little, sore topic type of thing. I honestly thought it was going to be Ovechkin, to be honest with you. He just set the goals record, and theoretically it's the last season. That hasn't been confirmed or anything, but it sure feels like it probably is.
Yeah, it's got to be. And it looks like it might be Malkin's last season too this year.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And if it is Ovechkin's last season, just remember who broke the news first. So
I sure do.
Oh, that's right. With your ticket call.
I mean,
or is it emails? The email you got?
It was the email I got, and I'm sure they denied it and everything, but like his wife went on a podcast the next week and said, "Yeah, we're going back to Russia after the season." So like, I will gladly take my victory lap once that comes true. So
interesting. Well, that's all we have time for today, guys. I'm going to say it one more time because this is how much I believe in it. Go see that new Naked Gun movie. And then you will immediately call me and be like, thank you, Evan. That's the funniest movie I've seen in a long time. See y'all next week.
Thanks for listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast. Follow us on YouTube at the Flying Octopus Channel and Twitter at Flying Octopod.